Hey, what's up, guys? This is my first YouTube video, so please go easy on me. I'm not used to making these types of videos, and it's actually my second take, and especially painful because I'm trying to record all this in one sitting and one take, so bear with me, but I promise that this version will be a lot shorter than what I was originally planning to upload. So hopefully it does turn out shorter. But here we are. I wanted to make a quick video on how to do your chaos dungeons as a Surge Deathblade because I realized that even after the so-called nerfs against Surge and the Surge Blade specifically, it still remains to be a pretty popular class, and even a lot of the people that went over to Remaining Energy because they were afraid that Surge is dead, blah blah blah. A lot of people are coming back because they're seeing that it's really not that bad. So I really wish they had done a lot more kind of testing before they gave their judgments. But I think Surge is it's still challenging, but it's in a good place. So for anyone that's interested in maybe making an alt, I wanted to kind of take away the anything that's making it too intimidating to play. Maybe it looks complicated, even though it's not. A lot of people will just say, Surge Deathblade, easy class, haha, But I understand. There are certain things that seem very daunting, and this video is really to help you get something to just hit the ground running. Or maybe you're a player that already has a Deathblade or a Surge Deathblade, and maybe you regret it because something's not clicking, or maybe you just feel it feels too clunky. That was actually me when I first started playing with my Deathblade, but I don't know. At a certain point, something clicked, and I've kind of stuck with it since. And I made 6 more Deathblades. And this is before I really knew how the alt systems worked. So I do regret maybe making like 2 or 3 Deathblades too many, I feel. But I do have a lot of hours on all my blades, across all my blades, and I hope that anything that at least even if it's just one thing, I hope you can take away with and start having more fun on your Surge Deathblade alt that might be the ugly duckling in your roster right now. Um, Before we move on, though, I do want to have some caveats. This video is not going to be too focused on players that have no idea what the Surge engraving is. It is going to be more tailored towards people that either have experience with the Surge Deathblade or someone who's been kind of looking into it, but just not sure what skills, tripods, and why you would do certain things, as well as a skill rotation. It's also not going to cover any raid content like Guardian raids and Vaulton and Argos and all that stuff. Mainly because I just wanted to keep it simple and as short as possible because it is a lot of content. But I will say that a lot of the settings that I'm about to share with you guys right now is actually almost directly applicable to any raid scenario. I would say the only things that might change is in the skill rotation. So you can kind of be rest assured that whatever you end up taking away with here, it would fare pretty well in the raid scenario. So that's that. But before we move on, just wanted to go over who I am, and why should you even listen to what I have to say? Because I'm just an average player. I just have a lot of Deathblade ults. This one that you see on my screen right now is 1470, and I actually have not played Lost Ark on any other regions before the NA and EU launch, but I do have over 2,300 hours logged into Lost Ark at the moment on Steam, and my roster level is like 149, if that matters to anyone that's watching. I just don't want to mess around with all the windows and stuff, just because I want to have this done in one take. So you're just going to have to take me at my word, I guess. But like I said, I have 7 blades. And across all my blades, I must have over 1,000 hours just on playing blades alone. And I know that's not as many as some other people maybe, but I just thought I would make a quick guide that I feel like would help a lot of people if they have no idea what they're doing. Um, I was kind of prompted to do this because I was trying to find guides on leveling my alts for different classes, and it was really hard to find someone or a guide that just told me the mindset of the class, kind of telling me what I needed to take, but also explain kind of like the flow and the whys behind what they were doing. So that is my goal here. And we're going to be focusing, as I mentioned earlier, on the Chaos Dungeon because it's the first content that we really come across after we hit level 50. If you guys are interested in any raid scenarios or raid content, do let me know. Um, I think I'll be going over that a little bit at the end of the video. But without further ado, let's get started. Um, oh, also, please, I don't consider myself the best or the expert by any means, so do take everything that I do say with a grain of salt. I will try my best to explain my thinking and my logic, so if any experienced Blade players come across this video, feel free to engage in conversations or just tell me whatever you're doing that's just straight up better. I'm all open. I'm all ears. But I really do hope that whatever I present is going to be the kind of bare bones. You can pick it up and run with it, and you're going to be just fine type of guide. It is a lot of content, though. Or I mean, it is a lot of material. So let's just kind of get into it. If you are one of those players that just need the cheat sheet for your skills, skill point allocation, and tripods and runes, I have 4. I have visual aids in the description box below, so feel free to check that out. Um, but from this point on, I'll be going over, kind of explaining why I'm doing everything that I'm doing. So if you're interested in that, let's get into it. The visual aids that I made are basically all the same, except from the first aid, which is this one, to the second and the third. It's gonna be going into a little bit more and more detail. So the third one has a lot of words. Maybe you don't want to see that. Maybe it's too much information. Maybe you want to stick with like the second one, right? But let's go ahead and break down what I kind of came up with. This could be completely irrelevant. These are just the keys that I use. You guys don't have to worry about this, but I just thought I'd put this in there just so you guys know. And this is the skill allocation and tripods and runes for 240 skill points. Basically, just as if you've just gotten to your Chaos Dungeons in Vern, right? It is kind of a gimped version of the Surge Deathblade because we don't have a lot of tripods that make things really nice for us, namely the level 10 Wind Cut and Spin Cutter. But let's. I'll go ahead and break down this table first. We have all the skill names here, obviously. All the skill icons for your convenience. And all of these skills should be as they appear from top to bottom in your skill window. That's a really big one. Sometimes people just link trees, and I have no idea where to go. And it's really annoying. Like, the next thing I see on the skill tree is like this one, and then the next one is this one. So I really try to make it as straightforward as possible. And these are the amount of stacks that each skill will generate with these tripods, assuming they hit your target. In this case, the mobs in the Chaos Dungeon. I did make a mistake. In this version, the stacks for Spin Cutter should be 2. And it's one of the main reasons why I say it's a gimped version of the Deathblade, because the level 10 Wind Cut and Spin Cutter is really helpful, and it's really nice for our stack generation. So these are the leveling priorities that I would take. And right after we get both of them to level 10, I would go for level 7 Maelstrom, and then the level 7 Earth Cleaver. And then, if you have more points, I would go into the level 10 Earth Cleaver. The runes, the only real thing to note, in my opinion, is the fact that I use Rage runes on my Spin Cutter and Maelstrom. A lot of people use different runes on Maelstrom. Some people use Bleed. Some people use Focus. But I personally like using my best Rage rune, which is my legendary Rage rune, on Spin Cutter, which we will use 2 times in a full rotation, as we'll go over in the rotation section. So we have a lot of opportunities to proc our legendary Rage rune. But in case it doesn't proc, we have the Maelstrom, Epic Maelstrom rune, for an extra chance at proccing it. It's not the best. It's really hard to find another rune that works well with Maelstrom, in my opinion. So that's just kind of what I slotted in there. But I do regard Rage to be very useful for me personally, because I just like having the additional attack speed that helps me get through the rest of my rotation. So a lot of people will use Galewind, which is kind of the same idea, but it only buffs Spin Cutter. So the idea for me is that I like to have high uptime on this buff, on the Rage buff, so that I could get through my Soul Absorbers, so I can get through my Blitz Rushes faster, my Earth Cleavers, my Void Strikes, etc., etc. So that's the logic. And when I say best, like best Galewind, if I had a legendary Galewind, I would slot this probably in my Soul Absorber, and my Blitz Rush would still have my epic Galewind. Unfortunately, I've been farming Descaluda since day 1, still don't have it, but whenever I say best, it just means the highest grade that you have available to you, and then the second best would be the next tier down after that. So that's the breakdown of this chart. The tripods, hopefully it was it's self-explanatory. These are the icons that you would be using to kind of match, but I know it's always nice to have the identification for what column for each row these tripods are in specifically. So I just put that in there for you guys as well. So that's the chart, that's the table, and this is what I'm recommending at 240. Again, if you disagree, feel free to leave that in the comments. And if you have any better suggestions, definitely let us know as well. But if we move on to here, the 356 skill point chart. This is more or less what I am using currently. This is with multiple skills at level 11, and the priority that I would do that with is Blitz Rush, Soul Absorber, Earth Cleaver, and then Void Strike as far as level 11 skills go. And there's no difference in terms of runes here. The only additional ones that we get here are a couple tripods that we didn't have before, but they just kind of make our lives easier and help us get to our goal of hitting 20 stacks as quickly as possible, because as you guys know, that is the name of the game. And I love this mini game, and we'll get to that in just a bit in the rotation section. This Void Strike, personally, I like taking Concussion, but for some newer players, I just thought Void Zone might be very helpful. But yeah, if we go to the third one, this is the one with a lot of text that that might be kind of overwhelming, but everything is the same. All the numbers, all the tripod, everything is the same except for these gray boxes down here. I just decided that it might be nice if I could write a little description or an explanation for what these skills actually do, and why we have them at all. So you can see here, this one's great for stack generation. It pulls CC. The pulling CC also helps you keep safe from all melee mobs. This one has the worst stack generation, but arguably the best mobility. And so there's a lot of text here, and I don't expect any of this to really stick, but I just wanted to have it available as a resource that once you get comfortable, maybe when you read it from like a day or two, a week or two, you'll see some abilities in different lights that maybe you hadn't thought of before. Or maybe you started seeing something happen in your rotation and you're like, I'm getting a lot more stacks than I thought I was. I wonder why that is. And maybe some of these explanations on like Maelstrom, for example, might help out. But these are just kind of broad stroke, kind of the why, and what our skills do given the tripods that we've taken, and hopefully give you a little more context as we go into the next section about rotations. And so my ghetto visual aid slideshow here continues. So here's more or less the rotation that I use in the Chaos Dungeon. And each row, I like to think of it as one group of action. So if anything, I will try to use all of these one row at a time. To be honest, at a certain point, you can just go from here to here, just all in one string, because the spin cutter and the dark axle gives you so much mobility that you can just go from elite to elite while you're stacking indefinitely in the chaos dungeon. It kind of depends on what map you get, but for the most part, it that really is possible. But I wanted to break down, kind of group these skills into their subgroups so that it's easier to kind of see, as well as use these numbers here to show you how many stacks each skills are giving us relative to our goal of hitting 20 before we can use Surge. So let's start from the top. Spin Cutter, it gives us 3 stacks with the proper tripods. So let's say we start our Z buff here. Spin Cutter, right? That's 3. And Wind Cut will always give us 4 if we have the proper tripod. So 3 plus 4 is 7. Now, while this is happening, as soon as you cast your Wind Cut, you actually want to cast your Soul Absorber because it's a charging skill. And you want it to charge while this Wind Cut is racking up the stacks, right? Because if you look at all these other skills, we don't really have a skill that does nothing while it's charging. Some of the other skills that could be charging or holding are Blitz Rush and Void Strike, but Soul Absorber literally does nothing while we are charging it. Now, having said that, if you start casting Soul Absorber while this Wind Cut is going, you will you will cast and waste these 2 stacks that you would have gotten from your Soul Absorber before the end of your Wind Cut. So basically, Spin Cutter, Spin Cutter, Spin Cutter, Wind Cut, it's making stacks. And then you're immediately charging your Solar Absorber, attack, and that's right when your Wind Cut will start will come to an end. And you might think, wait, but why are we wasting 2 stacks here if our goal is to get to 20 as quickly as possible? And this is kind of where the fun of the 20 stack minigame comes in. I believe that this is one of the best ways that you can get this DPS, this Solar Absorber DPS out while stacking. So it is a sacrifice and a hit on the stacking, but at the same time, it's not like we're going to be lacking stacking skills, as you will see, which might be the only argument for us to kind of use these 2 stacks more wisely. But Soul Absorber, Blitz Rush, and Void Strike, they all do decent damage, and we do want to get these out as quickly as we can and be efficient as we can. It's just that in this case, because Soul Absorber does not offer any additional stacks while it's charging, I believe it's one of the most efficient things to cast it, to use it while our Wind Cut is racking up stacks. Now, notice how I pointed out Blitz Rush, because Blitz Rush is actually quite different. We have a tripod that makes it very different from the Soul Absorber, so we'll get to it when we get there. But after the Soul Absorber, it technically does give 2 stacks, but you'll find that you're still sitting on 7 stacks here. So that's what this 7 in the parentheses is for. And right after that, we're going to be going into Earth Slash with the push tripod. That should give you 8, 9. And I should know this. This might bring your stack up to 10, or it might not. I actually should have tested this, but uh, it's different whether you have the level 10 tripod or not. So I just kind of left it here like this. So just know that this Dark Axle might give you one more stack. But it's not that big of a deal. Because right after this, right after you land, you want to pop your Maelstrom. And this is nice because when you Dark Axle, you might Dark Axle into a bunch of mobs, and now you might have a bunch of mobs surrounding you. And what this Maelstrom does is it actually pushes the mobs immediately around you for like half a second, and that's all the time you need, which generates one stack, by the way. So we add that to 10. And that's all the time you need because we're going to be immediately pressing our Blitz Rush. And we have a tripod that actually pulses around a small AoE around us. And every pulse is counted as a stack. Well, almost. If you charge it all the way and you let go of the final fully charged Blitz Rush, you'll find that you're going to get 3 stacks. So 3 plus 10 is 13. We're going to have 13 stacks total. And at this point, I would recommend using the Void Strike, just tapping it. We don't want to hold the full charge, the full holding duration, because again, it's a we want to weigh the trade-offs between, yes, we get more stacks, but is it more time efficient to cut that short and continue with our cycle? In my opinion, it is. And if you hold Spin Cutter right after your Void Strike, you can actually come out of this animation pretty quickly, reposition however you need to with shook 3 stacks, and immediately spam your Wind Cut afterwards for additional 4 stacks, at which point, as soon as you cast your E, you can actually press Surge. Because as soon as you cast, you might see 19, right? But the Surge Burst has an attack animation where, you know, you're doing that whole swing and you're slashing it onto the ground. During that animation, this Wind Cut is going to rack up stacks. So as long as the stack number says 20, by the time your Surge hits, or by the time that buff disappears, you're good. And that's actually how we cheese the 20 stack in this new meta, where we have to play the 20 stack variant rotations because, you know, our 12 stack, 14 stack cycle got nerfed or got gutted or whatever, right? The reason why this looks so overshot here is because this is in an ideal scenario. A lot of times, you know, you might have missed your Maelstrom because you were a little too far away, or maybe you used a Wind Cut here, but then the boss moved away, so you only got 3 stacks, right? And if that happens again here, all of a sudden, if all those things happened at the same in one rotation, all of a sudden you're down on 3 stacks, right? So I like to top my rotation off so that I'm a little over 20. But it's important to I think it's important to point out that the way I top off is using the Wind Cut at the end of my rotation. So I'm really not losing that much DPS as far as my, you know, stack hitting requirement goes, because whether I'm at 18 or 19, if I use my Wind Cut, I'm gonna get there. Worst case scenario, if I'm at 17, or second to worst case scenario, if I'm at 17 stacks and I use wind cut, I know I can still use my surge and it'll still hit 20 by the time I use my surge. My surge stack, that is. Now, worst case scenario, if my stack is at 16, I know I can press E and I just wait a second, maybe like half a second, because I know that if my wind cut goes for its full duration, then it actually will get to 20. It's just that it won't have enough time to get to 20 if I press E and surge immediately after. So that's really the power of the reason why this flexibility is possible is because I personally think using the Void Strike earlier in your stacking cycle is a lot better. It takes a little bit getting used to, because I think a lot of us are kind of used to using this as a like a failsafe. If we happen to end the cycle with 19 or 18 stacks, then we can use this to regenerate 3 bubbles. But then I thought about it and I realized that it's much better to use it, for me, for my playstyle, it's much better to use it as a part of my stacking cycle to ensure that I have a higher chance of hitting the 20 stack, so that I won't need to use it, right? And we're really not losing that much time just by tapping it and, like I said, holding on to or spamming Q right after the Void Strike really helps you get out of the animation faster. So I really do think this is kind of like the better way, at least for me. But I know there will be a lot of different thoughts and deviations on that. But I think it's probably a good habit to get into. And if you're stacking towards 20 and you're at 18 or 19, it really doesn't make too much sense that you're using your burst that you've been building up over the past 8 to 10 seconds and just not getting the full value just because of one stack, right? So that's basically the thought process. We press Z, rinse and repeat, and that's basically it. I do want to have some kind of guidelines that maybe people can keep in mind, because having these guidelines hopefully will give you like a template of what makes a good rotation. For example, I'd always try to couple these skills in this order. This might be a little different in a raid scenario, but spin cut, wind cut, or spin cutter, wind cut, and soul absorber. And I mean, to be honest, for the most part, often Earth Slash, I always couple together. The big one is what we talked about here with Wind Cut and Soul Absorber, because Soul Absorber doesn't give any stacks while it's charging. So it's a great compromise between you getting the full 4 stacks from the Wind Cut and getting the DPS out of the Soul Absorber. And it just happens that Earth Slash buffers incredibly nicely following right after Soul Observer. So if you guys haven't tried it yet, try casting, just try spamming Earth Slash right after Soul Absorber, and you'll see that it's incredibly smooth, incredibly fast. So that's another thing I try to couple in there. Um, Especially in raid scenarios, I'll save this Dark Axle, but in Chaos Dungeons, you can just kind of throw it in, especially if you have the level 10 tripod for Earth Slash. It's going to push mobs away. So I like following the mobs with the Dark Axle. But right after that, I I always make sure I try to use Maelstrom, Blitz Rush, and Void Strike together, because these Blitz Rush and Void Strike have really long animations. And the level 7 tripod on the Maelstrom actually gives us more attack speed. And this is not counting for the Rage attack speed buff that we might have gotten from our Spin Cutter from our previous rotation. If that didn't proc, hopefully we procced one here. And hopefully, if neither of these two procced, we have the epic Rage rune here, and hopefully that'll proc. In addition to the level 7 tripod, that'll help us get through this little cast animation hell here. And as soon as we get to that, again, if you're spamming your Q or spin cutter in this case, then you'll see that you come out of Void Strike fairly quickly. You can reposition, maybe to the front of the boss, or the front of the elite in the Chaos Dungeons. Throw down a Wind Cut in their face, Dark Axle behind them, and then use your Surge Burst, right? And then Z, rinse and repeat. So that's the kind of logic that I use to couple certain skills together. And I really do think it's you guys you don't have to use exactly what I'm suggesting here, but I do think that thinking about these things can really help you come up with ways to come up with your own rotations in that are hopefully more efficient than mine. Right, so those are some principles that we want to abide by, some guidelines to keep in mind that I hope can help you get your noggins turning. But at the end of the day, Surge Deathblade, all it is just this stack mini game, first to 20. How do we get there as quickly as possible while getting the most out of our sub damage dealing skills? And if you can do something faster, if you can do something better, if you have a different skill that you want to use because you can't stand not using Moonlight Sonic, because yes, these skills are not the strongest in terms of AoE, but I personally use them because it really helps me train my muscle memories for like the raid contents, for example. But if you really have to use Moonlight Sonic for Chaos Dungeons, at least you kind of know why I'm using all these other things, and you'll know which ones to take out and how to make up for it in your stack generation mini game towards 20. If you have any better ways of doing this, feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to hear. If you guys have any questions about anything I said, I know I said a lot. I know I am not the most concise person. I apologize for rambling. But if you have any questions as well, feel free to leave that in the comments. And if you guys wanted to see uh, kind of like the raid versions of how this kind of setup might apply in raid settings, let me know. If there's any specific guardians you wanted to see kind of broken down, because you really want to have a easier time doing a Grexion, or you really want to have an easier time doing Yoho, or even the earlier raids, let me know. And I will try to work on that. The one video that I can promise is coming soon, if not at the same time, is kind of like a live demonstration of all this. So hopefully, if you guys have any lingering questions, you guys can see how it works. And I might provide some commentary. I'm not sure yet, but hopefully that'll kind of clarify a lot of things as well. So, anyways, I'm sorry it was so long, but thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. I hope this helps you decide to start your Surge Deathblade, or if you've had a Surge Deathblade, you're more excited to play it now, and maybe it'll just stop collecting that rested bonus just a few less times. So, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.